So today we'll talk about Docker volumes and bind mounts. Volumes are nothing but data storage. So today we'll create the data storage and we will attach this data storage with the containers. Alright, so today we'll talk about Docker volumes and bind mounts. So volumes are nothing but the storage. The storage will help us to keep our data as and when I need to refer this data from my container, we can attach this storage with the container. Once I attach, that means I can see the data any point of time, right? Because it is attached with my container. So it is very easy to attach with container, and once it is attached, I would be able to see the data. If I am generating new data inside my container, that the new data also we can copy onto the storage. And as a backup process, we can raise a request with the backup team that please take the backup of this volume storage. We can mention the path and then they can take the nightly backup, right? So in any unwanted or in any disastrous situation for any uncertainty reason, right, we should not lose the data. So this is how we will keep the data on the volume. Bind mounts are nothing but the shared folder, right? So we can also how we can how we can share the data using the shared folder concept in the container, right? So that also we can do. All right. So let's get started. Now introduction to Docker storage, right? I have navigated to the second screen. Are you able to see my second screen on my
Yes.
PPT? I moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. So by default, what happens? All the data of content is stored on a writable container layer that we have already seen that I can go inside the container and container scheme comes with a writable layer. That means we can create directories, we can create files, we can create, we can do some installations, all that we can do. We can start service, we can stop service. This is all we have done in the previous session, right? So that means once we are inside the container, container comes with the writable layer. So we can store the data inside the container, right? But that is a default thing. But what happens is, what will happen if your container is deleted? If my container is deleted, I will lose my data, right? Or I have to commit every time. That means the multiple versions of the image will be created. Whenever I commit, it will put it into a new image. Whenever I commit, it will put it into new image. So that is not an appropriate choice, right? Because we will be seeing one file in one container image. For another file or another data, I have to start another container. For another file and another data, I have to start another container from the another new image, right? So we cannot use that logic, right? Putting the inside and then do the commit. Commit will copy entire thing into a new image. So we cannot create multiple images for small thing, right? So what is the appropriate choice? So the following layers will help us, right? So what will happen? The data only exists while the container is active. It is true, right? As long as my container is active, I can go inside, I can see, I can find my data, everything we can do, right? But only till my container is active. Active means it is up and running, right? If the container no longer exists or deleted, the data will also be deleted along with the container. All right. So if I delete my container, that means my data will also be lost, right? There is no way I can find my data because my data was part of my container and now I've deleted the container. That means my data is also deleted, right? So this is not the appropriate choice to keep the data inside the container all the time, right? The writable container layer is tightly coupled with the host machine, hence it is not portable. That means wherever, wherever and whenever I start my container, the container will start on my local machine because it needs the local resources like CPU, memory, all that thing. That means it is tightly coupled with my machine. I cannot just send this container to you or your container, I cannot pull it, right? So that we cannot do because it's tightly coupled and it is running on my machine. So that means we cannot transfer the data along with the container because containers are not transferable. They will be running on the host machine, right? So that option is not also available. So it's a non-portable thing, right? Data on writable layer in the container is written using the storage driver, right? Now, Docker comes with a lot of storage driver, right? Overlay and all that thing we have already seen, right? So even for volumes, we have a plugin available already. If you don't remember, use one command docker info and you will just find out, go to the plugin section and storage section, you will find it, all the details, right? So we already have the thing. So why should not we go ahead and create our own volume, right? So we will create our volume, right? So how we'll create the volume? Let's say my container is running here. My pointer. All right. So we have a container. What we can do, we cannot have my files or my directories or anything which I want to create inside the container as a data cannot be part of my container. It should be outside the container, and we can attach it, right? We can attach it, right? So we can attach it. So basically these volumes are nothing but they will create a separate partition, right? External partition outside the container, and this partition is available for all the containers, right? Only thing is you have to attach it. Once you attach it, right, you can read the data from this storage volumes, right? And this tmpfs mount is it's automatically get mount with my container. Through one command we will mount it, and it will has its own file system, right? So whatever uh, the host machine is having, the OS and all that thing, by default it will take it. And Docker also basically creates its own file system on the existing OS because it's compatible with all the OS. So it is automatic kind of thing. We will see in demo also. It's an automatic thing. Bind mount, as I said, it would be a shared folder on my file system, and that shared folder I can also attach with my container, right? So I can read the data or I can get the data from the shared files or folders, and through which we can share the data with any container, right? So that also will take some use cases. All right. So this is just a simple visualization, and we will do our understanding with some demo, some use cases. All right. So let me go ahead with my Docker instance. Can you see my screen, guys? Docker screen.
Yeah, I think yeah, you
Okay.
need little zoom in.
Yeah. Please zoom in. I'm on full screen.
Okay.
All right. So to see anything, right? So what is the command? Docker volume ls. Right? Docker volume ls, right? So ls means list. All right, ls means list. So when I fire this command, I don't see anything, right? I don't see anything. All right, so I don't see any volume, anything. It's empty because we haven't created anything, right? And remember our Docker default directory, right? ls cd, sorry, varlib docker, right? What that is our default part. Var
Lib.
lib docker, right? And inside this, you would see there is a folder called volumes. It's here. Alright, so whenever you create any volumes, it will be stored inside this volume because Docker keeps all the artifacts in its specific folder. Containers will go in containers folders, images will go in image folder. Right now, today we are discussing volume, so it will go into its specific volume folder. Alright, so we haven't created it. So Docker commands are talkative commands. The way we are talking, the commands are also like that. So what I want to say, hey Docker, I want to create volume. So volume, and what I want volume, I want to create it, right? You can give any name to this volume, right? Let's say we are working for some particular client. Let's say we are working for IBM. Just an example. Okay, so we are working for an IBM. So I want to keep the name as the storage as for IBM, so that all the people who are working on this project and supporting this client called IBM, right? We want to keep our data right on this volume. So I've created this volume, right? So Docker volume, right? Just a shortcut or just a trick. Docker volume they will always come together. Alright, all the commands will come after. Create, ls, delete, all command will come afterwards. So Docker volume they will come in pair. Alright, just remember. So Docker volume create, and I've created. Now if I just go and see Docker volume ls again, you see now I've just created this volume. Alright, I've just created this volume. The name of my volume is IBM, and it is using the driver local. Right, from where it is coming, right? If you know the Docker info command, you will get to see that okay, we already have a driver for volume. All right, and where it is, let me find out from Docker info command. In the Docker info command, right, if you see here the plugins folder, and inside the plugin folder, this we already have a plugin called local, right? This we already have it, and that's the reason when I file this command docker volume ls, right, you see the driver is local, which is coming as a plugin, right? This is the plugin. All right, so we have a local, and the name of my storage is IBM. So that means you are working for IBM customer, and all the data related to this client will be kept inside this volume, right? So that way, all the team members, whoever is supporting this client, we can access to this common storage, right? So we have created our IBM, and where it is created, as I said, right, varlib docker, right? And inside that, what is the folder name? Volume, right? Now, when you come here, you will see your IBM is created here. Right, this is my volume. IBM is created here. It has its own some folder, some DB folder where it maintains all this, the configuration, everything in a DB file, and then it has its own backup block div and all that thing. Right, but my volume is IBM. Right, so this IBM is created. Right, currently nothing is there. Right, so what we can do? So we will put some file inside this IBM storage, and that file we will, once I attach with the container, I should be able to see that file. So I will do a CD to go into this path. Right, now let me create one file, right, and CD to IBM, capital letters. Now when you are, if you see the storage, by default it creates underscore data folder by default. Right, so this folder will be created whenever you create your volume as a first time. It puts the data inside this default folder. So your volume name is IBM, but your data will be stored inside this underscore data folder. This is the by default structure of Docker volume. By default it will create. Tomorrow if I create new volume and my volume name is, let's say, Oracle instead of IBM, again you will find the underscore data folder and all the data will be inside that thing. So I will CD to this folder, and now if I do ls, nothing is there. So let me quickly go and create some file here. Let's say,
The font is too small, Prashant. Am I seeing all? I'm not sure others.
can you zoom in? You must have some feature or something. Just
Yeah,
try.
if I zoom in, the screen is going left side. Yeah, I
Prashant,
think.
in terminal you can do it, right? In putty, you can increase the volume. I mean, the font.
It is going like this. When I increase, it's increasing the font like this.
Oh,
I don't
it's
know why
not
it
Can't
is
putty,
like
right?
increase
this.
here. No, no, we can't increase here. We have to log in with by putty only.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
Some other
You
option,
can
right?
choose to hide everyone so that the screen becomes little big on the top bar.
It is,
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, but when I zoom to 50%, the screen is going to left side. Uh,
oh, is it?
I mean, my yeah. So I can see only half.
Mhm. I'm just firing Docker commands only, nothing big here.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Please.
Okay. All right. So go client name, anything, right? I'm just creating one dummy file so that we can do validation with this file. I should be able to see the content of this file inside the container. All right. So client name, let's say IBM, right? And let's say project code, anything, right? So 11011, and I'll keep this file. And after I'm creating this file, so this file has been created. My file is client details, right? Client details.txt. Let me open this file. These are the content, right? Client name is IBM, project code is this, right? Some file I've created inside this IBM volume, right? No containers running, right? Just the storage I've created. If you just see docker ps-a, right? No containers are running, all right? If you see docker images, nothing has been downloaded, all right? So this is what we have just created, one volume, right? And the path is always, remember, docker volume, docker lib var lib docker inside that volume folder, and underscore data folder will be by default, right? And my file is created here. So we created one file. Let me do cd and go back, right? Let me clear the screen. Now let me create one container, docker run.
Prashant, when we are
Yeah,
trying to open the var lib Docker, it is telling that it is permission is denied in Ubuntu.
that means you are not using, use sudo command.
Okay.
I'm logging with root user. That means you are not with the root user. You can use sudo command. Sudo
Sure.
and then ls var lib docker.
Okay.
Just try.
Yeah, it is opening. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Quick question,
Yeah, go
Prashant.
ahead,
Why
please. Yeah.
Why is there IBM in Docker volumes? Is there any specific case for that?
We created one volume, no, by name IBM. So Docker volume, we created it.
Okay,
This IBM, I have created it.
okay,
So by
okay. Sorry.
default, it yeah. So by default, it will register inside that location, varlib Docker,
Okay,
right? Varlib
thanks.
Docker, and inside that volumes. So inside volume, when you go, this IBM is created inside the volume because Docker structure is like that. Containers will keep all content artifact information. I hope you got my point.
So if it is a local means here, that is going to be stored. What are the volume is
Look,
going to be stored
local is the
under root,
driver name.
root volume? Is it because see this is an EC2 instance where we have only root volume attached to it. So is it going to be stored under the same root volume of that instance?
No, 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 no. Varlib Docker.
Yeah, but where lib that is a path, but where that
Hmm.
see it has to store some file system space, right? We need some EBS volume or some file system.
It automatically takes. Docker automatically configures the file system because Docker has its own plugin drivers automatically. So you need not to do anything. That file system and automatically handled by Docker itself.
Yeah, what my question is like is since our EC2 instance has root volume is like 10 gigabytes, and if you try to
Mhm.
store the volume of like greater than 10 gigabytes into that local whatever the IBM volume, maybe
Yeah,
it will fail, right? That's what my question
yeah.
actually here.
Okay, okay. So what happens is you have to attach a disk on AWS instance or a physical machine or any VM machine or any server, NFS server you are using. You have to increase the size by
Correct.
attaching that
Yeah.
disk. Okay.
Right.
Once you
Secondary
increase the
apps.
size, yeah, then you can manage it. See, data is always like that. Once my disk is full, we have to attach new disk, right? So we have to increase the capacity.
Thank you.
Alright, or we have to create multiple volumes. That anyhow, I have some use cases that I will be discussing today, right? So how we can pull the data from multiple volumes. So that also we will discuss. Alright, but as and when my disk is full or my data is already overflow with the size of my disk, we have to increase the capacity by adding another disk, or we have to replace by a higher capacity. Alright, so we have just created a volume. Now how to attach this volume, that we will study now, right? So our Docker container command is Docker run command, right?
iPhone
As
ID.
usual, -dit, very good. Name, give some name, right? Let's say 007, right? And now to attach volume, we always have -v, right? Or you can have hyphen volume, right? Double hyphen means full argument, right? Double hyphen means full argument, or just single hyphen. We just say single hyphen means the first letter of the argument is V, right? Volume. The first letter is V. So hyphen V. Now, what is the volume name? Right? You give the
IBM.
exact name, IBM. Capital letters, if you have used, use the capital letter. Otherwise, it will get confused because it's a case sensitive. So IBM is my volume name. And now I want to map it with my container. This is my local volume. Whenever you want to map it, use colon and slash. Why we use slash? Slash is basically folder, entire directory, right? Or entire partition or entire disk. So always use slash. If you don't use slash, then it will treat as a file. And we are not sharing just file. We want to see the entire directory structure, entire folder. Inside that folder, I may have subfolders. I may have a specific folder, my applications, right? So I want to go inside, right? And then I will navigate to subfolder based on my applications, right? Inside that, we can have our personal folder also, right? We are 6, 7 people here, and we can create separate folder, and I can store my temporary work inside my own folder so that people will not get disturbed, that who has created this file and who need this file, unwanted file, and they may delete it. So we can even manage our own folders also, right? That I'll talk about it. So whenever you have this volume and whenever you want to attach with the container, always use colon and slash and then give the same name, or you can give any name. So let's use the same name. Then we will use some use cases to understand it in a better way, right? So this is the thing. This is your volume name, and then you want to attach with the container, use colon slash and give the same name, right? So we are attaching like this. All right. Now use anything. Let's say Nginx, right? So Nginx, and then let's say give some version 1.22. All right. So this is what I want to create, the container. So first of all, Docker run will try to find the image locally. If didn't find, it will do the pull, and then it will start the container also. So image has been pulled, right, and the container also started here. So let's go and verify everything. Docker ps. This is my container. The name of container we gave 007, right? This is the name I gave here. So my container is up and running. All right. So if I go
Dockerized.
inside this container, docker exec is the command, isn't it, to go inside the container? Because outside we cannot see anything. We have to be always inside the container. My container name is 007, and as a best practice, it should always be a shell, so that we can go with the shell and do all the actions using this shell as a command line. So this shell will give me my command line. So I'm inside this container, right? What is my container ID? 1F8 something, right? So this is coming from here. So we are inside this container here. Now if you do ls here, right, you should see your IBM volume attached. Can you see the first folder as IBM, right? Then bin boot dev, right? First folder is IBM. We created one file inside the IBM, right? Let me go here, right? CD to IBM, and when you do ls, this is the file we created, right? Directly on the volume, right? We created, and I'm able to read this file, right? When I'm attaching to this nginx container, this file content I want to display by using cat command, and this is the file name, and you see this is the content of the file, right? Client name is IBM, project code is IBM 11011, right? This something, this file showing the content, and this is what we have created. So I'm able to see the files, or I'm able to get any files, right, like this, because we created one file. Now I'm able to see one file from this container, inside this container. All right. So this is how we always create. Now inside this IBM, if you want to create some directory, right, let's say I want to create one folder called nginx. This is my application nginx, and I want to create one more folder here. Now if you do ls, you see your previous file is already there, plus you have created some new folder, nginx. All right. So that is how now you do whatever you want. Let's say I want to go inside this folder. Let me create one more file here. All right. So we created this file, right? So I've created one directory, right, inside this container, not on the volume, but inside this thing, right? On the volume, there was only one file, client details file, right? But when I have created this container, my volume is attached, and now I'm creating new directories, new files, anything which I want, I can do it, right? Only thing is, you should always be in your volume folder. Your volume folder is IBM. Inside that, you can have nginx folder or any file, whatever you want, but you should be in your volume folder, right? So now we are here. Now let's say my work is done. I will exit from this container and go out, right? So we are again back to the host machine, and this is my container which is running, right? What is the logic, right? Your container should be up and running, right? Since it is running since last 3 minutes, your container should be up and running. Then you can go inside. So we went inside, right, and we created some new folder and new files we created, right? But where they are stored, right, they will be in your varlib folder, varlib volume folder, varlib docker volume folder. So let me go into the path and verify again. Okay, so we are here, right, inside this, and inside the volume we have IBM folder underscore data folder. Now if you do ls, you could see the nginx folder is created. So in Linux, the blue color is the folder and white color is the file. So the previously we created one file directly on the volume. This is the file we created. But in this container, when I was inside this nginx 007 container, I created one folder nginx, right? So this is available here, right? And this nginx folder, we created one file, right? Welcome.txt. At welcome.txt we created. So that means once the volume is attached, right, both way I can do, right, vice versa. I can read the files from the volume, or from the container I want to write some new file or new folder or new script or new data, I can put it into this volume. So both way it is allowed, right? From the volume to the container, I'm able to see what all things are there on the volume. I would be able to see it, right, from the volume to the container. and from the container back to the volume, that is also vice versa is also possible, because we haven't created this nginx folder on the volume, we created while we were inside the container. All right, so everything is now there. Now in case you delete this container, right? So what is the command? Docker rm -f. Rm means remove the container and then give the name or ID. 007 is my container. So my container is removed. Now if I just say docker ps-a, ps-a, nothing is there. Container is deleted, right? I've deleted the container, but the data on my volume will not go, right? It will always be there. So if you just want to see, you can just check, right? So IBM. So all
We
the
just
data is available.
we just deleted the content, not the volume. Yeah.
Yes, right? So this volume will always be there available. Your container will be deleted, your container will be coming, going, recreated, new container, right? Doesn't matter. So my data is intact. Where is my data? I deleted my container, but my data is not lost, right? Inside the container, I generated new files, new folder, that data is also not lost. My container is all completely lost, right? I deleted my container. My container doesn't exist now. It's completely gone. But my data is not gone. My data is still intact, right? And that is the reason we always keep the data outside. But outside means where, right? It should be safe and secured thing. So Docker always maintains the data inside the volume, which is safe and secured place, and the default path is varlib docker volumes. All right. So this is how we have created it. Now let's create one more, right? I can fire the command directly from here or go back. Docker run -dit. I'm starting new container. Okay. -dit -name. Right? Give any name. Let's say test123, and then create one new container, right? So before that, you have to attach the volume, like -v. My volume name is IBM. To attach with my new upcoming container, which I'm creating through this command, right? So you slash, and instead of IBM, I can say anything, right? This is basically a mapping, right? I can map it to TMP, and inside that I can create any folder, right? So inside that I can create any folder. Let's say Ubuntu, right? I'm just giving, or let's say team, right? So our team folder, right? So under the temp, and this is, so what it will do, it will do basically mapping, right? It will do basically mapping. IBM will be mapped to this path. So you will see the content of IBM inside this path. That is means I can do. If sometimes my source code specifically go to a particular folder path, right? So I can even do a mapping, right? IBM and my source code folder path, let's say any path inside my application, maybe varlib Java, and inside the Java we have JVC or some other folder, I can map it. Basically we are doing after colon, and when you put slash, we are doing a mapping. Last time we did mapping with IBM. So when I went inside the content, I saw the IBM folder was there because we did the mapping with that name. Now I'm doing mapping with this name, right? Temp and team. All right. So temp/team, and then create anything, right? You can create from nginx image, or let's say we want to create from some new image, Ubuntu 18.04. Let's see. Right? So -v is the only extra argument we are doing. Rest all my command is how to create container. That same command I'm using, but I'm just adding -v and attaching the volume. Right? This is the extra parameter we are using while creating the container. Right? So it will pull the image and then create the container. Now if I say docker ps, this container is up and running. What is the name of our container? Test123. Let me go inside this container. Right? Don't forget the command docker exec -it. What is the name? Test123, right? And then use shell. So I'm inside this container. This is my ID of container 62402BB, right? Then B8459. We are inside this container. Now if I do ls here, right? So this is my container. what is the mapping path we have given? If you remember, this is my mapping path. This is our mapping path. So what is the mapping path? IBM is now is mapped to /temp and /team, right? So where is your temp? /temp is here, which is already shown in green color. So let's go into temp folder, TMP folder, and inside that, right, I will just go to this folder and do ls. You should see one folder team. It will automatically create the folder, right? This folder wasn't exist, right? But when you map it, it will automatically create the folder also automatically. If the path exists, fine, well and good. If the path exists, it will map to the existing path. If the path is not exist, you can create the path. It will automatically create the folder. So this folder is created team. So let me go one more, right? Level down to reach out to the teams folder, team folder, right? And then when I do ls, I will see everything, right, from that volume, because my volume was mapped to this path, right? /tmp team, right? We mapped to this path, right? This is the mapping we did. So IBM is mapped to this. So whatever content of IBM should be dumped here into this folder, right? Because we did the mapping from IBM to this path, and I'm inside here and I could see it here. All right. So we are here and we can see anything. If you want to create new folder or anything, let's say I want to create some folder by my name, right? So we can create some folder. Same way, we can create some folder by other team members. Let's say Anil is our team member, right? Or let's say Sunil is also our team member, right? So I'm in new container, right? From Ubuntu image, I'm into new container and I'm creating new files, folders, everything, right? Now, if you do ls, you see I have created Anil, Sunil, Prashant, right? And the previous folder Nginx and my client data and all that files are also there. Plus new files, folders have been created, right? So let me take one quick example by putting some file into this folder.
Prashant, is there any way like we can set it up like a maximum size for this volume? Like just go for by while creating that?
We can do that, no problem. We can do that. There are some arguments we can always go and track and all that we can do.
Okay.
That we can do. All right, I'll show you when I do a bind mount. Okay, I'm just creating some here so that we can see that and we can understand it. Right, so inside that I've created one file by name Prashant, right? No extension, just the file name. And if I able to see the content, this is my file content. All right, and I'm inside this container, right? And I'm exit, right? Which container is running? Docker PS is the container which is running. All right, and we did everything, right? If I delete this container, right? Let me delete this content. Docker, what is the name? Test123, right? Is it running? This container I deleted. All right, intentionally I deleted. Normally we don't delete, but I deleted it. Now where's my data? Right? We already know our data, right? Which is in the inside the volume,
Where live Docker
right? Yes.
volumes.
So when you come to this folder, you will see everything. All right. So whether you have one container and that is deleted, another container and that is deleted, right? Like that, like that, like that, you can create any type of container. Only thing is when in Docker run, use -v to attach this volume with the new container which you are going to create, so that it will be attached to that container. And whatever mapping path you have given, right, go inside the container and you would be able to see all the data from that container.
Prashant, I have one question here.
Sure.
Suppose I have two servers, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I have deleted the same containers are running on the two servers, okay?
Mm.
But I have deleted the one container in one server.
Mm.
So will it automatically deletes in the next second server or how it is?
No,
Because
you are
the
deleting
image and
container
everything
by,
will be the same, and the container
yeah.
name is also same.
No, you cannot create container with the same name.
Different servers, right?
Different servers. Yeah, then that's fine. So you are removing that container with that container name on that machine only, that server
Okay.
only.
Suppose if
So
both servers are in cluster, then how this will
then you
work?
cannot use same name.
Okay.
Then you cannot use same name. It will get confused all the time. So it will say this
Whenever
name
we
already
deleting,
exists.
whenever we're deleting, we'll be selecting that container ID. We are not
Yes,
going. That's, we are not deleting the server name.
correct. Right. So first of all, the name will not be same. IDs will be different. All right. So you can use container ID. Right. IDs will be different. As soon as you create container, right, and if you're on different server and you are using same name, the ID will be different. Container ID will be
Okay.
different.
Oh,
All right. But in cluster, we'll do all these use cases, and that time I'll show you how the naming and all that thing will done. How will you remove? Which will go first? Which will go second? All that we will understand it. Right. Docker Swarm. We will create our
Yeah,
cluster on Docker Swarm, and that time we will do all that thing.
yeah, Prashant, I have another question.
Sure.
So do
Yeah.
do we have any option of creating a volume outside of the local, like using a
Yes.
secondary partitioner, colon
Yes.
apps,
Yes.
something?
You.
Okay,
Yes. You can do it anytime. Right. We have NFS folder or SAN storage folder or SAN storage servers. We can always map the path to that.
right.
Right. So it will
EFS.
be
Yeah.
global path. Instead of local, it will be global path, and you can mount that path. You know in Windows how to mount that, right? You can mount that by some drive, right? A Z drive, and that server you can map to that path. So whenever I want to reach out to the server from my local machine, I will go to that path, Z and the colon, and then I'll go to that path. All that we can do. In Kubernetes, I'll be doing that thing,
Okay.
right? NFS, all that configuration, because Kubernetes, same volume we can use, but slightly in different way, right? So I can use any external servers, any storage servers, NFS or anything. And there are many tons of storage we have from many vendors, right? AWS provides its own storage, Microsoft provides its own storage, like that many are there, Scale.io or OpenStack, right? There are many vendors, right? Flocker, Fiber Channel, all these vendors, they provide storage to Kubernetes, and we will be understanding that part. All right, so this was a simple thing. Now, if I want to read the data from multiple volumes, because I just created single volume called IBM and we are playing around with IBM only. So let me go ahead and create some other use cases and let's see how we can attach and read the data from multiple volumes, right? Maybe the use case goes like this. I may have front-end application so far. I will keep all the data related to front-end application into a different volume. Let's say one particular volume for backend, for all my backend applications, let's say who are running on database and all that thing, I will create a separate volume and I can read the data from a separate volume, right? So backend data I will be pulling from one particular volume. Front end I'll be pulling from data pulling from one particular volume. So I can maintain multiple volumes. So that we will understand it now. I'll not delete anything. Let it be there in the background. So what was our command? We started with Docker volume, isn't it? So Docker volume ls, right? Local. This driver is already there, right? Docker info is the command if you miss anything, right? So here, if you see under the plugins folder, right? Under plugin folder, we have so many things, right? But what I'm discussing only volumes and volume. Docker also always come with a called local volume, right? Docker always comes with a its own plugin called local, and that's the reason whenever you create your any volume, right? By default, it picks the driver as right. This is the driver. It picks as local by default. All right. So it has picked up this thing. So with the same fashion, I can just go and create one more volume. All right. So this IBM already there. Let me go and create one more volume. What is the command? As I said, commands are talkative, or if
Docker
you want
volume.
to remember, yes, Docker volume create and give
Create.
any name. Let's say, yeah, sure. Let's say Oracle is my another volume name. All right. Just a name. I am using Oracle. You can use any name. Right. So this is my Oracle. Now, if you just go and see Docker volume ls, you see both the volumes are here. Now, what is the default path? Default path is var lib docker, isn't it? So var lib docker and inside that volume folder. Now, if you go inside volume folder, you will see both the guys are there, IBM as well as Oracle, right? And if you want to display, right, instead of horizontal, you want to display vertical, we can use any arguments here, hyphen LTH or anything, right? So you can see, right? So
Uh,
who has created all this? So my IBM, Oracle, both are here.
Prashant,
Yeah,
volume means can we assume that it is a C drive or a D drive in a Windows type thing, like
Yes.
that?
Yeah, it's your storage path. Docker
On
Docker always keeps the default path. Varlib Docker is my default path. Docker uses always the default path. It's just the path. Inside that it will create folder and all that thing. So storage is nothing but a name of folder.
So when we create that sorry, volume or something, should we format it or not?
No, you should not. It is just a folder. When you create new folder, do you format the folder? You don't,
Oh,
right? It's an empty folder by default. So same way it is empty volume by default.
no, no. We are creating in AWS, right? The volume means so one
You
time we
you
will
mean to say
format it in Windows, but when we create instance in AWS, right?
hmm,
We should format it or not? That's a small doubt,
you mean to
glitch.
say you mean to say when you create any additional AWS disk and you want to mount your storage onto that AWS disk as a storage, that time on the disk you can do formatting all that thing, right? So
Thank you.
let's say retention policy, let's say 1 month data you keep, right? And next month, right, you what you will do, you will take the backup of this data on the tape backup or somewhere you will archive it, and you will again format this volume so that people can use for the next month. That also you can do. All right. So now we have created two volumes, right? So what are the two volumes? Let's go with very basic things, right? Docker volume ls. Now I have two volumes, right? Let me create one container, right, where I can use both the volumes, right? Currently nothing is there on Oracle, that's fine, right? Oracle volume is empty. We already know because no data is stored in Oracle. We have not kept any data. That's fine. I'll be keeping the data. I will be storing the data directly from the container. So I'm starting a new container, Docker and dit hyphen hyphen name, right? Give any name this container, right? Any name, right? I'm giving fast container as a name, right? Very big name, but I'm keeping that name, all right? Now IBM, you can map with the same name IBM, or you can map to any path also. That's fine. Now I want to map Oracle hyphen V. Again, same thing, Oracle, map it, right? Same logic, right? This map I want to map with Oracle, and inside that I want to map, right, in this path, temp, var, let's say Oracle, something like this, right? So Oracle will be mapped to this path. We are doing mapping, all right? Or you can map it directly Oracle with Oracle, right? So this path we already seen. Let's say I want to use the same name, right, as my container storage when I want to see inside the container. So what I'm doing here, this V hyphen V, we are mapping this storage, and in second V, we are mapping the again second volume, right? Both volume we are mapping hyphen V, right? If you have third, again you can map the third volume. Like that we can map all the volume, right? So currently I'm mapping two volume and use the same image, previous image which is already downloaded, Nginx 1.22. All right, let's go and do that. So no image pull because image is already there. Last time we pulled this image. So if you just see images, this image is already there. So this time didn't pull the image, it directly started the container. So this is a container ID, Docker PS, right? So this is the container ID which is running, right? Now if you go inside this container, Docker exec hyphen IT, what is the name of my container? Fast container. I will use the ID this time better. Okay, fast, right? And always use bash shell. So now I'm inside this container. All right, I'm inside this container. Now if you do ls, you will get to see both the folders, IBM as well as Oracle. All right, let me first go to my IBM folder, right? And when you do ls, you will see all the data which is there in IBM. Since IBM volume is attached, so you will see, you will get to see all the data, right? If you want to navigate to any folder, you can go and verify. Right? I would say ls, and let's say Nginx. Inside that there is one folder called, there is one file called volume, right? right? So this is the content of Nginx folder. Right? Same way, we kept something on the Prashant folder also, right? And inside that the file is Prashant, right? So everything intact, right? Now if I come out of this path and if I go to cd to Oracle folder, right? Inside Oracle nothing is there, right? Let's go and create one folder. Let's create one file inside this folder. This is my backend database, aura.db. We created one file inside this thing, right? Let me exit from this guy. Okay. Now, if I go to my warlib docker, we already have a path, I believe. Okay. We already have a path. So if I just go to same path and if I go to Oracle, and we know under data store folder, under data underscore data folder will be created by default by volume. And if you see, this is the file we created, right? So aura.db, right? Aura.db was the file we created, right? If you want to remove and want to see just one line, let me shrink. So this is the file we created, aura.db, okay? Right? If you want to do cat, all right, and then what is the file name? Aura.db. So this is the content of my file. So Oracle volume was empty. There was no content inside, but we created one file while we were there inside the container, right? The container was fast container, right? In the faster container, we created one more file and Oracle. So I'm reading this from both the volumes, right? So we can read the content from both the volumes. All right. So IBM as well as Oracle, we can read the contents and we can attach. So it's very simple, right? In Docker, and what we are doing, -v we are attaching as an extra argument and doing the mapping path, right? Your volume versus the same volume name, right? By using colon slash and give the same volume, or you can map to any path. All right. So it's just a mapping path we do by using extra argument -v for volumes, and we are using the same command, docker run command. All right. So this is the way we can attach the volume, right? So this is how we can do it. All right. Now, if you want to delete, we can delete it, right? Or if you want to create volume, we can create volume. So we have personal folders, we have application folders, we have all the things, whatever you want to keep, we can keep it. All right. So whenever you want to remove, or first remove the container, because if you want to remove the volume, the command is like this command, docker volume rm, right? Which volume you want to remove? Let's say Oracle first, right? So it says you cannot remove because one, it is being used by one of the container, right? It is being used by one of the containers, so you cannot remove it. So what is the thing? You have to always remove the container, because your container is attached with this volume and you are trying to delete the volume. You won't be able to delete it because it is being used by one of your container, and it is true, right? My past container is using this volume, right? So always remove your container, rm-f, or do docker ps and get the details of your container and then delete it. Docker rm, and what is my container? My container is this container. All right. Now if I just go and delete docker volume rm is a command, and when you delete it, it will delete. Now if you just go and say docker volume ls, you will see only IBM is there, right? We also have one command, docker volume prune. Prune, what it will do, prune will remove all the volumes, right, in one go, right? It will remove all the volumes in one go, right? So whenever you want to use prune command, it will tell you, right, this will remove all local volumes, right? So and it should not be used by any, even a single container should not use this volume. It will remove in one go. It is asking for confirmation, yes and no, right? It is asking for confirmation. The moment I say yes, right, it will. So it has not removed, or let's see. So it has not removed. Why? So it has removed the thing, right? When I say Docker volume ls, you will not see any volume, right? So you can use rm command.
Is there any option to unmap the volume instead of removing the container? If you just remove the container and remove the volume. So instead of removing the
Yeah.
container, is there an option to unmap the volume itself?
Unmap means, see, when your container deleted, it is not
Yeah.
mapped to anything. It was attached with the container. I deleted that container. Now it is not attached to anyone.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, let's
just
say,
want to remove the volume. Yeah, no, not the
yeah,
container.
let's say there are two containers. One container we deleted it, but the second container is still using this one. Okay.
You
So we
cannot.
instead of,
See,
oh,
if any volume attached with the container, that means it is being used. You cannot do. It's something like when you open the file and you are trying to delete the same file, it says this file is open somewhere.
I think the use case is like we would like to remove the second volume from the existing one so that that can be attached to a different volume. That's the case, I think.
Yeah, you can do it. See, since the same container was having both the volumes, right? So that is the reason, right? So we have to remove that, delete that container, and then one by one I deleted the volume. I deleted first Oracle volume separately, and then later I deleted IBM, right?
Yeah,
Because the
let's
same,
say you have only one
yeah.
container running now. One container is running and that has a volume here. So
Hmm.
we just want to remove volume only, but the container should be up and running.
No, you cannot. No, that is what
Is
I
it
am saying.
possible?
When you, no, it's not possible. So if the volume is attached with any running container, you cannot delete it. It will say your volume is being used. I cannot delete it.
Right. Yeah, because the process is running and still it's shared resource,
Right.
right? So maybe
Exactly. Right. It's something like I open one file in Windows or anywhere. When I open file and I'm trying to delete it, it says this file is being used, cannot be deleted. Right. So
I
same
think
way here also. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, in that case maybe we have to stop the
Correct.
terminate
Yes.
the container and rebring that attachment with the only single volume.
Yes.
We have to
That
start.
you can do.
Okay.
All right. But how to do that? You should know the thing, right? So Docker run hyphen v is the only argument we are passing in Docker run command. Hyphen v is nothing but a volume. And use the appropriate name, whatever volume name you have given, you can attach it.
Okay. Can you tell me one more time, like what is the purpose of this prune command?
Prune command will remove all the volumes in one go. You don't want to remove one by one. Let's say you have created 10 volumes, right? So you have to fire 10 times the same command. Remove one, remove two, remove three, like that, till you delete all the 10 volumes. Prune will delete all the volumes in one go.
Okay. Thank you.
Right? So prune means all the volumes. Specific, then use specific RM and mention that name. It will remove only that volume, not all the volume. For all the volumes, use prune. Prune means all the volumes.
It
That
is
is why
like
it asks for the
RM minus
confirmation.
RF, recursive.
Yes, exactly. Because all right. Now the second part is bind mount. Bind mount is purely shared folder. All right. So if you have no questions here, then I can move with bind mounts, and then we will do some trial and error on bind mounts. Should I go with bind mounts? Bind mount is nothing but shared folders. Right. So where I am, PWD, PW is print the working directory path. So I'm at the root level, right? So you can create some file, some folder here. Let's say my store, I want to create one folder, right? So make dir is the command, make dir, and my store. My store is the folder which I just want to create it. And this my store folder, I will share it with my containers, right? Not from the volume, right? If I say Docker volume ls, right? No volume is created, just a folder. Make dir is just the folder command, right? So I've created one directory, right? Directory means folder by the name my store, right? And if you want to do C, right? If you want to see ls, you will see this my store is created. Let's go into this folder my store. We are here. Now if you see, there is nothing there inside this folder. All right, let's create some files here. You can use tail command also. If you are in Linux and you are aware of the command, you can use it. So I've created two files, AA and BB. All right, I've created two files inside this my folder, my store folder. Right, if you display the content of AA, this is the content of AA folder, sorry, AA file, and if I want to display the content of BB file, this is the my BB file. Right, so I've created two files inside this my store folder. So let's come out of this folder. Just give me 1 minute, guys. Somebody is knocking my door. Just give me a minute. Okay, guys, I'm back again. So what we did, we created one folder, right, called my store, and inside this my store we have two files. Right, if I do ls of my store folder, there are two files, AA and BB, right, and these are the content of the files. Right, AA is this content and BB is this content of the file. All right, so we created two files inside this folder. Now I want to attach this folder my store. All right, so my store folder I want to attach it. Right, so what is the path? Because we will be using the path, so it is inside the root. So same command, docker run command hyphen dit, give some name, let's say starfish, any name you can use, starfish, and then same thing, the way we were doing for volume, same thing, hyphen v, right? Hyphen v is basically to attach, right? So we were attaching volume, now I will attach, right, the folder. Now there's only one difference. When you create volume, when you do the attachment of volume, we just use the name, right, IBM, right? We don't mention whole path, var, lib, docker, volume, and inside that IBM. We don't use path, we just use the name of the volume, that's it. But when you use the folder, you have to use the path, because this guy doesn't know where you have created folder, in which path you have to create folder, and from where I have to pick that folder. So it doesn't know, you have to mention the path. That is the only difference. Right, there we were using the direct name of the volume, but here you have to use the path. So it is inside my root path, and then inside that there is a folder called my store. Right, so this is what you have to do, and then you can do mapping is same, right, colon and slash. I can use the same name, or I can map to my store, I can map to some other path also, right? But here I'm using the same name, my store, so it is quite appropriate for me that precisely I will be looking for by this name and I'll find it. So I'm using this name, right, my store, right, and then use any image, right? I'm using nginx, right, nginx colon, that image is already there. So container created, let me see, docker ps, this container up and running. What is the name of my container? Starfish. When it got created just 4 seconds ago. All right, just 4 seconds ago. Let me go into this container, because outside we cannot see anything, it has to be inside. So I'm going inside this container. The name of my container is starfish, and then bash. All right, so I'm inside this container. Now if I do ls, right, you should see my store folder. My store is arranged in chronological order. So after m, under m, media, mnt, and my store is here. Right, this folder is here. If I just go inside this folder, my store, and I should see both the files, AA and BB were the two files which we created, and both the files are available here. Can I see the content of this file? Let me display the content one after another. AA, this is the content of file AA. Let me display the content of another file, which is BB. This is the content of my BB. Right, so we have attached the folder. What is the difference? Volumes, when you attach to the container, you can use direct name of the volume, right, directly. Hyphen v IBM, hyphen v Oracle, we can use just directly the names of the volume. But when we attach a shared folder, right, Docker doesn't know where you have created folder and which folder, right, I have to pick to attach with my container. So you have to mention the path. That is only there, the name, here is the path, right? Only the bind mount is nothing but the path. But when I say volume, just the name. All right, that is the only difference. Right, now let me create something here also, right? So here I can use echo command, or I can use command called tail. Right, tail is also a file creation command in Linux. So I'm creating one new file called cc. Well,
It is touch, it's not tail.
oh, sorry, touch. Tail is to display the content. Touch.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Right, so this is the touch. When I see the file is here, but this file is empty file. If I want to display, it will just create an empty file, nothing is there. So let me create some content inside this file. Anything, whichever content you want to appropriate, just validation very easy. We are creating some dummy files. I'll redirect the output to cc. Now if I want to see the content of this file, cat cc, there's something inside this file. Alright, so Using touch, you can create files also, right? But that will create empty, right? Empty files. So I've put some content inside the file. Now CC file wasn't there inside this my shared folder, my store folder. The CC file wasn't there. Only two files, A and BB were there. But I created this file from this container, right? So that we can test it. So let me exit from here, right? And now if I say docker ps, right, it is here, right? But this is not the volume, right? There is no volume, right? Just the shared folder. So when you say docker volume ls, right, no volume is there. So where it is there? It is directly on my local folder on my local machine. So if I go inside this my store again, and when I do ls, right, you see all the files are here. ls-l, right? All the files are here. A, B, B, and CC.
Can
Right?
you
If
do
you want
PWD ones?
PWD,
Yeah,
same part.
root master. Okay.
Because we created in root folder, we created this folder, my store. And the same folder path I shared in my command here when I was attaching. Right? This is the path. So for shared folder, we always use path. But for volume, we always use names. It will automatically take the path. But when you create folder, it's a custom folder, Docker doesn't know where you created. So you have to mention the path. All right. So this is the thing we have created. Right. And all the files are here. So if you do ls cat a b cat right. So two files we created on the folder before we attach it the container. And when my container was up and running, I went inside the container, created a new file called cc. But all the files, since it is mapped shared folder, it will be dumped into this folder only. Right? So I can read anything inside the content from the shared folder, or I can put my new content into the shared folder. Both it is allowed, right? Vice versa it is allowed. All right, guys. Any question on this bind mount? Are you good?
So earlier you created using a Docker volume, but
Mm.
here you just created using mkdir, right? A
Yeah.
local for
Yes.
directory.
Local folder. Yeah. I want to share the folder. Let's say in a team,
Right.
we are working for IBM, right? So somebody is Python developer, somebody is testing, somebody is database DBA, right? There are two guys DBA. Right? They want to share some temporary data within them only, not with all the team members. They can share the folder. Or if my application needs some from the shared folder, right? And it should be on some specific path, because Docker volume will go to the default path always, varlib Docker. But here I can read from my any local path also. I will use bind mounts, which is shared folder path. So I have both the options
So
available.
if you create with Docker volume, any volume,
Mhm.
it can't be shared with between the containers, right?
It can be shared by using the volume name. What I'm saying is Docker volume, whenever you create, it will be created in the default path of Docker, varlib Docker only. You cannot customize that path.
Mm-hmm.
But here, I can customize my path. I can give any path anywhere. Let's say I want to pull some data from some other, and that data I need it in my container. I can share it. Because custom path I can give through shared folder path.
So
Instead of
both the ways it is, I mean,
Both the ways.
it can be shared, right? Yeah. Okay.
Both the ways. Yes. Both the ways. Hyphen v
All right.
volume,
Yeah.
hyphen v, and I can give the shared folder path also.
yeah, instead of local file system, local drive,
Yes.
we can use
Yes.
NAS also, right?
Yes. 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 Right. So both we can use. All right. Only difference is varlib Docker is your secured path. You cannot access that path from outside. Outside means I'm here, right? I have to have a Docker installed on that machine. Then only I'll be getting that path varlib Docker, right? It's something called encapsulated, where my Docker is running. It will take that path by default. So my data is always protected. Nobody can take out my data just like that. If it's a shared folder, shared path, people can take out the data.
Yeah.
All right. So all the security features, they are using these volumes. Otherwise, shared folder will do the job for me. Right now,
You,
This same
okay.
concept I'll be using in Kubernetes slightly advanced way. Right? So just hold on with all the concept, basic concept, whatever we are building here, we'll be using in a better way. Plus, I'm creating all these things in manually. I'll be automating it. Once we go to the automation, we'll be using everything automatically. Right? I'll not create manually the volume and then attach. It will automatically created and attached. Right? So we have not touched that part automation. But once we go to the automation, everything we can do in one go. Right? So many things we will be leveraging the same knowledge again and again with few other topics. Yeah, go ahead. Somebody was asking some question.
Yeah, Prashant, if let's say if I have 5 containers or 10 containers running on the machine, if I want to
Mhm.
kill all the containers in a single shot, how can I do that?
Docker RM hyphen A.
iPhone, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Hyphen A means all.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it removes, right? RM.
Yeah. Remove me delete. It will delete all the
No, we
containers.
we don't want to delete. We wanted to kill. Means
Kill means what? Kill means you are deleting, right? Kill means
no,
you
we are
will
just
kill the processor.
yeah
uh,
killing the.
yeah.
You
Okay,
want to
okay,
I,
got
stop
it.
it. You don't
Okay,
want to
okay.
delete it.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. If you bring up, okay, got it.
yeah,
Sure.
I tried with the iPhone A, capital A and small A. It shows like I couldn't recognize that command. RM help. Okay, I will try it
Is
offline.
it? Just try because that is the only command we use. Hyphen A. Use otherwise hyphen A. Hyphen all. All right, guys. So this is about Docker volumes. All right. Now we are moving towards automation. We did everything manually. We did the Docker commit manually. We went into inside the container. We created file folder installation. Then we do commit. And whenever you do commit, Docker understand only one format, that is the image. So it will dump everything into the image. Right. That image we can upload and people can use it. So that means if there is a customized requirement based on my client side, right? I can, based on the requirement, I can put the data inside the content. Maybe the application I can put or other things I can put inside the thing. Somebody needs a test script, which should always be coming through the running container. I can put inside the test script also, right? All that we can do. Or there's a data, back and forth data, we always use volumes, right? All this, whatever we have learned so far, we have learned manually, right? Now we will move towards automation, right? So we do slightly automation thing, right? Now, so far we are using images which are not created by us. Somebody created images, we are using every day those images. We are using Ubuntu, we are using Nginx, we are using blah 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 images, right? SQL server and all that images, right? We are using it. Now going forward, we'll be start building our own images, right? Going forward, we'll be start building our own images, right? Using those images, we will see, okay, what is my customer requirement, what he wants. Based on customer requirement, I can build the image the way I want to build it, right? The way I want to build it, we can start building the images. So since we have time, I want to utilize the time. I'll just give you the introduction, and tomorrow we'll start trying to do a demonstration, right? We will start building the images, right? So let's go back to my PPT. Always remember, Docker volumes we keep outside, right? We never put the data inside the container because container is immutable thing. They will come, they will go. My data should not be lost. So we'll always put the data outside the container. That is why I deleted few containers in the morning, right, in the beginning of the session, and my data was still available on the volume. All right. Then when I create new container, I would able to see all the data, right? So that is how we always keep. Right. Now we will understand the Docker file concept. Right. Can you see my screen, guys? Can you see the slide by the name understanding Dockerfile? Is it
Yeah.
visible?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. All right. So Docker file is basically, this is the file, right, where we put the build instructions, right? The way I want to build my image, right? I put all the instructions into one file, right? The name of that file is called Docker file, right? How this file looks like is just like a pure text file, right? Just like a pure text file, and you have to just follow few rules. If you follow few rules, then we can create our own Docker file, right? So let's go ahead and first understand all the semantics, nuances, what this Docker file is going to offer us, and how we are going to use this Docker file concept. All right. So Docker file is basically a build instruction file, right, for building the images, because Docker understands only one thing, which is image. If I have the image, right, I can start the container from that image, right? So container will automatically will be running from the image which we will be building, not from somebody build and we are using the image. We will customize the image now, right? So far we were customizing containers. Now we will customize the image also. The way we want to build, we will be building the images. How? By the Dockerfile concept. Dockerfile concept is the just a build instruction, right? You just give all your instructions, right, into this file. Docker engine will read this file as an input file, and it will read all your instruction one by one, and it will try to create the image in the background based on your instructions, right? So we will do everything, right? But how? Let's understand the Docker file. All right. So as I said, Docker file is basically a text file, right? No coding, no programming, not even a single line of coding. All the command, whatever we have done manually, right? All the command, even make dir, cd command, right? Do the installation, Docker run command, Docker image, everything, right? Creating the volume, everything we will be putting all the instruction into this file. All right. So basically, it's a text file, right? What it will contain? It will contain the commands, right? A user could call on command line. That means all the previous command which we were using on the command line, right? All the command we can now put it inside this common place called Docker file, right? Docker engine will read this Docker file as a instruction, and in the background, right? In the background, it will start creating all my. It will start building the image. Basically, it will read the instruction and start building the image, right? How? It will put all my whatever actions I will put inside this file. Based on that actions, it will create the image. So basically, it will assemble an image based on my instructions. All right. So Docker file is essentially, what is Docker file? The build instructions. Because what I'm going to build, the build image, right? So I'm going to build the image, right? So what instruction will put? The build instruction. The way I want to build my image, I'll put all my build instruction inside this file, and this file just a pure text file, right? It doesn't, it's just a ordinary text file. That's it, right? But only thing you have to remember is you should not give any extension to this file, just the file name, right? Docker file is, you can use this Docker file also as a your file name, right? Or you can use any other name also. You want to use capital D for Docker file, or you want to use small d for Docker file, you can use it. You can give any name also. Let's say Nginx Docker file, or my Python application Docker file, or my Java application Docker file. Any name you can give to this file also. But by default, Docker also takes Docker file as a default file name, but I can give in custom name. So we will do both the use cases. I will use the default Docker file name also, and I can use the custom file name also for my file building Java application or my Python application. All right, so we'll start building. We'll take the Java source code and I'll build a Java application as a container image for Java. And when I run the Java application, right, basically I'll use a modern application of Java, right? If you heard the name of Spring Boot and all the messenger application which we create in Java, so I'll be taking the source code and building the image out of that source code. Similarly, I'll be taking some use case from Python also, right? If you're aware of Python framework, right, Flask or any Boto or Anaconda, any framework, I'll be using Python also, right? So we'll be start building the image based on whatever we need to build. We will put the instruction and we will build the image. So it's very simple. All right. So remember, no extension. Why? But if you give the extension, that means you need that runtime application also who can understand these extensions. So we don't use any extension, just the file name. All right, Python Dockerfile, Java Dockerfile, or just purely simple name as a Dockerfile also I can use. All right, so this is very simple thing, right? We will put all the instruction, no coding, no programming, just the instruction, and it will build the image based on my instruction. So there are some rules, right? How we put the instruction, there are some rules which I'll talk in next slide, and I'll tell you. If you remember those rules, right, you can also start writing your own Dockerfile, right? And once you run this Docker file, here you can build your own image. All right, so let's get started. All right, so it's just a normal flow I've created just for our understanding. Always read this flow from left to right side, right? So always go from left and then move towards the right hand side. All right, so how to use Docker file? So let's say we are working for some client, right? That means we have created some project repositories, right? For source code IBM, I have some project in my Git repository, right? For IBM client, right? So we have some project source code and all that thing based to that client only. All right. So what we do, based on my project code and based on my customer requirement, I can create my Docker file because I know what customer wants, right? What all things he wants. Based on that, I can create all my instruction. I can create a specific Docker file for this client and put all the instructions right into this Docker file. Right. So Docker file is the starting point. Now, this Docker file, what it will happen? This Docker file basically, my pointer is not working. It's here. Okay. Okay. I'll just maximize. Is it fine, guys? Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
fine.
it's very clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we are working some project and we already have a project source code and all that things. So what I will do, based on my project code, I will first understand it. And as I said, you should remember few rules, right? How to write this Docker file, right? That we will learn anyhow. I'll be teaching you that, and we will also learn this thing, and we will do some use cases also, right? So we'll put all the instructions inside this Docker file. This Docker file, my Docker engine will read this Docker file, and it will execute each and every instruction one after another. Once all the instructions are created, when all the instructions are executed, you will get the output of your all Docker file is always an image, because Docker understand only one format, that is image format. So it will build an image, right? So it will basically execute all the instructions, and basically in the background it will be building your image. It will assemble, right? It will layer by layer, it will build your image, entire image. You remember when I pull image, right? It will basically layer by layer, it downloads the image, right? You see pull one, pull two, like that, it downloads, right? I'll show you. All right. So ultimately, this Docker engine will read all the instruction and it will produce a image. Right. Once this image is produced, what I can do, I can start the container out of this image, which I just built this image. The recently built image, I will start a container out of that image. Once I start a container, I can do my thorough testing, right? How I wanted to have this image, whether this image is built or not, I will start a container and do a testing, right? I do my testing. If I'm satisfied that, okay, the way I wanted to build the image and it has been built and I'm satisfied, I can push this image to Docker Hub. Docker Hub is our registry server, right? It's basically a repository, but we say registry because we have to register, right? So we'll push this to Docker Hub. Once the image is available on Docker Hub, right? Anyone can pull this image and start containing the staging environment. If they are fine with staging environment, we can even pull this image and run in a production environment. All right, so my containers
Is
may be running on production server or my staging server. We can even use this image, the image which we built, not the ready-made build. We will be building the image. That image will push, and then we can start in any environment. Yeah, go ahead,
is
please.
is it mandatory that we have to register in Docker Hub?
Hub is the default repository, right? With no penny, no money, it will ask, and with paying, you
No,
need not
the
to pay
point
to anyone.
is,
But if you have your private repository, in-house repository, maybe Nexus or any Git repository, any repository, if you are using in-house, you can put it there also, no problem. It just
uh,
need a storage where you will be keeping all the images. By default, Docker gives, so we use Docker Hub as our repository.
and point number two, okay, why
Yeah.
we need a staging server? Oh, see, when we are directly pulling the container from the Docker Hub, why we
Hmm.
need a staging server?
Normally, what happens, staging, we never push all the applications just like directly to production environment. We never do that, right? Step by step, we move, right? From development environment, it will move to testing environment, right? Testing environment, they will do rigorous testing and all that thing. Once they find that there are no bugs, then it will move to staging environment. Staging environment where some other applications are also running, some previous containers are also running, and there's new image when it will go and sit on that server, right? It should not conflict or clash with my existing applications which are running as a container. So what we do, we don't want to disturb our production environment. We do a pre-test of production environment on the staging environment. Staging environment is just like a pre-test of my production. Before moving to production, we can do. So my application may be running here. Maybe some integrated applications are running. We will deploy this new container, which we just build the image, and we'll do the testing along with the other environment also, other container, other application, right? If you are satisfied, right? Sometimes you may see that some port conflict or some other conflict also happen. So only for that we go to staging. That is the only thing. Just to avoid the downtime of your production environment. You don't want to disturb your production environment just like that. Right? So no surprises in production environment. So that is why we follow step by step deployment process. All right? Okay. Now, how to build a Docker image, right? As I said, there are some rules, some guidelines, right? So let me tell you, right? I again did the full screen. All right. Now this is the base image. All right. So basically, rule number one, Docker file always start with some base image, right? That means, right, for Docker, what is the concept? You have to be inside the container. Once I'm inside the container, I can do any installation. I need front end, back end, middle tier, any application, right? The way we did Apache 2 installation, right, for HTTPD server. Then we install Git, then we install Python, then we install Nginx server also, right? All that we did on Ubuntu, we did Nginx installation, right? So once I'm inside the container, I can do whatever I want. So while building the image also, you need some base container so that you can go inside and then you can do whatever you want. So we always need a base image. That is rule number one, right? We always need a base image. Now from where we will pull the base image? From your repository, maybe your internal repository or maybe directly from Docker Hub. Docker Hub, you
So
can pull
base
all
image
the
is
base
nothing
image.
but an OS.
Yes, your OS, your application runtime. Let's say Java dependent on Java C or Java JDK or some .NET application, they are dependent, .NET ASP application, they are dependent on Visual SDK and all that thing, right? So any dependency which your application need, maybe OS dependency or some other application dependency, right? We can use as our base image. Base image is always just like a thin client, right? It's a very lightweight image, right? You will customize on top of it and bring other things. All right. So we will first, as a starting point, we'll pull the base image. Now how? Which instructions? So if you see on my right hand side, all these are commands, Docker commands, right? So the rule number one, my Docker file, the first instruction Docker file is always the base image. How to bring the base image? Right? We have to use few commands here. They are not arranged in order. Right? Randomly I put this command. So run is one command, from is one command, maintain is one command, add is one command, cmd is one command, entry point, and all these are commands. Right? Let me give you the background of this command, how to use it. Right? So rule number one, in your Docker file, whenever you, the first instruction always comes for the base image. Right? That is your starting point, right? So today we are in US project or a UK client or any Indian client or Middle East client, right? Rules will not change. It will be static. You have to always follow the same rules. Whichever environment, whichever image you are building, rules will not change. So always starting is base image. How to use base image? The from command. If you see this from command. So the from command will always be the first command in your Docker file or your build instructions file, right? So from command, from Ubuntu, from Nginx, from, right, Java, JDK, right, 11.2 or 15.0 or 16.0, right? So from command is my base command, base image command, and it should be always the first command. So if you open any Docker file, you will always see the first command or the beginning instruction is always from command. All right. So from command is the thing, right? This is the rule number one. Rule number two, all these commands which you are going to use in your Docker file, they should be in capital letters, right? If you see here, whether the three-letter command, run is three-letter command, all the letters of run command, all three letters should be capital. Not only the first R will be capital and U and N will be small letter. No, all the letters should be capital. Whether three-letter, four-letter or multi-letter, all the commands should be in capital letter. That is rule number two. Rule number one, you should always use from command to pull the base image. That is rule number one. Rule number two, all the commands should be in capital letters. Right? Don't use any small letter. It will throw an error. All right? Because there are some programs written on this command. So when you call this command, some program it will execute. An action will be done for that particular command. All right? And it will identify through capital letters only. Right? So that is the syntax. Right? So all commands should be in capital letters. That is rule number two. Rule number three, whenever you want to use this command, they should always begin with a new line. That means from is one line, second instruction when I put, it should start with the second new line. You cannot put jumble rumble and put everything in one single line, say my Docker file is done. No. Docker engine will fail to read your thing. Docker, basically it's a compiler. Compiler reads line by line. Right? Compilation happens, the compiler engine compiles your file and read your file line by line. So it should always begin with a new line. All right, new line means, let me show you some command here. Right, I'm trying to build one image. Right, so from Ubuntu is my starting point. You can put some comments. Comment are non-executable statement. There's some description you can put as a hash and put some comments. That is allowed. But always from command will be your rule number one. From command will be your first command. And second rule is all commands should be capital letter and they should come in a new line. right? So three rules, right? One rule is always the from command will come as your first instruction in your Docker file. Then all the command, whatever you want to use, it should be begin with capital letters, and they should always begin with a new line. You cannot put in one line and rumble jumble and say my Docker file is done, right? It should be single line. So that is rule number 2. Right? I'll go back here, right? That is rule number 2, right? And then this command when you pick, right? Any command when you pick based on your requirement, you should follow some order, right? You should follow some order. I cannot just say in the beginning, after from, I cannot say, okay, start the services, right? The service will start only when my application is installed. I cannot start the service of my application just like that in the beginning, right? So you should follow the flow of your instructions also, right? Give instruction in particular order, because Docker will always read from top to bottom fashion, right? It will always read from top, right? First line, second line, third line, fourth line, like that, like that, like that. If you have 10 lines, it will start from 1 and then it will go 9, 10, right? So it will go in particular order, right? So always give a flow of instruction, right? Very simple rule. First rule is always from command to pull the base image. Rule number 2, all the commands should be in capital letters. Rule number 3, all the commands should begin with new line. Rule number 4, they should be in particular flow, right? All these commands should be in particular flow, right? And rule number 5, right? These commands, there are some container commands also, because as I said, everything should come from your image, right? So there are two container commands. The CMD and entry point are basically your container command, right? Now let me give you the background of this command. Run command is basically your executable command. Anything you give to run, it will just execute it. For example, I want to create directory, right? Make dir my store is my directory I want to create, or make dir test123 I want to create. So I'll give it to run. So what run does? Run executes the command. Whatever you give to run, right? So run, after that, whatever you give, it will just execute that line. If I say cd to some path, let's say var lib docker volume IBM, I want to go to that path. So I'll use run cd. Cd is my command and give the path. It will directly, run command will take you to that path, right? If say run make directory, it will create directory. If I want to install application, right? apt update and apt install command, right? Apt get and apt install, I can give it to run. Alright, so run command is your executable command. Anything you give to run, it will just execute that statement. It will execute that command, right? Make dir, cd command, create directory, create label, or do anything, right? I want to do installation, right? Run command will help. Alright, so run is executable command. From command, as I said, is the first starting command, which is to pull the base image from. They give the Ubuntu 14.04, or just give Ubuntu, it will pull the latest image of Ubuntu, right? Or say just say from JDK 15.0, it will pull the base image for Java application JDK, right? Anything, let's say Python, right? So base image, right? Whenever you want to pull, we use from command. So from command is the first command always, right? Any Docker file, right? So from command, and run command is executable command. Maintainer is just an author information. Maintainer means I can give who's going to maintain this image. In future, if I find some problem, that whom to reach out, right? I don't know who created Java application, where the Java development team sits, I don't know. Where the Python development sits, maybe here, UK, Middle East, or US, I don't know, right? So maintainer, we always give the URL of the team, like a DevOps team, or the support at the rate DevOps team, or Java development team, right? You can write the email ID of the team, or there is only one guy, right? Right? The support engineer or the application lead or application manager, you can put the name also, right? Maintainer Prashant, maintainer Anil, Sunil, right? Rajesh, any name you can put, right? Or you can put organization name. You can put vendor name also. Maintainer, maintained by whom, right? Let's say IBM, right? IBM given some contract to some vendor, right? Who is maintaining, we can put that thing. So whenever IBM people, they will face some problem, they'll reach out to that vendor automatically. So maintainer is just like a comment or a description or a label, right? So you want to put any description, right? Author information or email or any more mobile number or hotline number, we put it under maintainer. Maintainer means, right? It's just like a description, name, email ID, author name, or any comment or description or label. You want to put some labeling also, you can put maybe vendor name is your label, right? So we can use as a maintainer. Add command is basically a copy command. I want to add some file into the container image. When I'm building an image, I want to add some files, right? I want to copy some file. Maybe zip utility I want to provide, right? Because we are dealing with a lot of zip files. I want to unzip it in the container image itself. So I will load my installer. So I can copy files, or I have some my DBA database script file. I want to copy inside my image. So add command will help me to add the files or add the folder into your image. While building the image, you need some data to be part of your image. We can use this add command and put the right folder files or anything, right? Even installer you can put also, right? Add CMD and entry point, they are basically container command. I'll talk little later, right? Now env is environment variable, right? The short form is env, full form is environment variable, right? In short, we say env. So env means if you want to set some environment variable, maybe your application version you want to set as a app version, and that's a 3.2.1, right? You want to set this variable, right? So we can use, or your application using some username, I want to set through the environment variable, or my application is having some dependency, and that dependency path I should maintain, right? So I will use this environment variable to suffice all these kind of requirements related to environment variable. Environment variable normally they help during runtime. When my application is up and running, it will locate its dependencies or its version information or maybe plugins, right? So we mentioned, right, everything through environment variables, and we can set the path also through environment variables, right? So env. Expose, whenever you want to expose your container, that means you want to expose your application on certain port numbers, right? So expose command is used for port number, right? I don't want to open all the port numbers. My application is running inside this container. It should run on particular port number. Let's say Nginx is running on port 80. All right, right? MongoDB runs on particular port number 2717 port number. Right? SQL database run on some port number. Redis database runs on 6379 port number. Right? So that port number, where do you set? So we use this command expose, and we can set the port number directly inside the image. Right? Normally port number and all these things are post installation configurations, but in the image, everything should come from the image. Right? What we'll do, just start the content. That's it. So when you start the content, by default, it should run on particular port number, and I can declare that port number using this expose command. Expose 8080, that means my application will be running on this port number 8080. All right, so this is how we can do. If your application is having need some user, some credentials, we can use this user as a command, and you can mention any user. All right, so for your SQL database, you want to log in with some particular user, right? So that user you can use through this command user, and you can declare your user for that particular container application, right? So your image will be having that information itself inside the image itself. So we can use this user. Volume. Today we had a session. Before the session, we had a volume session. We were creating IBM volume, Oracle volume, and we were attaching with our containers so that we can see the data from the volumes, or we can write the data into these volumes, right? So my containers will be deleted. I should not lose the data, and for that reason we were using the volumes. I can use this volume command directly. As I said, we will do the automation. So this is the automatic command which is available. It will create volume and attach with this image. That means whoever will be creating container from this image, the volume will be configured automatically by default. You need not to configure it manually, right? So we can even configure the volume by using volume. I'll be using all this command, don't worry, but I'm just saying the command is right, automatically it will do the job, right? No manual thing. Work dir is something like your default path, right? Varlib Docker is the default path of Docker by default, right? But it is written somewhere. That is why it is setting the default path all the time. Same way, if I'm creating my application, right, and my client, right, my IBM client or my any other client, they had some specific locations, right? I can set that path in my application using work dir. So work dir path, I can set it, right? Varlib Docker, same way I can set it. C program file something something something, it will directly go to that application folder, right? So all that we can do through this work dir, right? These are the core commands. There are a few other commands also which I'll be using while building the image, but these are the core commands. So what are the rules? I'll just summarize it once again. Rule number one, always your Docker file should have, basically, is nothing but a group of instructions, build instructions. Your first instruction should always begin with from command. From command is responsible to pull the base image. All right, so from command should come. Rule number two, all commands should be in capital letters, right? Don't just use first letter capital and then all the letters small, or all letters small, not allowed. That all letters should be capital. That is rule number two. Rule number three, this command should come in a capital letters. They should begin with capital letters. That is rule number two. All right. Rule number three, you should follow some order, right? Top to bottom, it should be in particular flow, right? That is rule number four. Rule number five, right? Rule number five, basically, these two are your container command, right? So All these commands are your image commands, but these two are special commands, cmd and entry point command. They are your container command. That means when your image is built, fine. When somebody download an image, that is fine. But when you start a container, right? Your container means you should go inside your application and then start the services, right? If you know Apache 2, we did the installation, right? We went inside the Ubuntu container, then we did apt get update, and then apt get install Apache 2 -y we did. It did the installation. But when I check the services of Apache, the services were not running. Manually, I have to go and start the services, right? If that is the case, that means the application is installed fine, but who will start the service, right? If you don't start the service, your application is meaningless. Your application will only be up and running when once you start the services. So here, these two guys will help me to start the services. They will go inside the container, right? Which container? When you use Docker run command, they'll go inside and they'll basically start the service. Basically, these two commands, what happens is, let me give you a background, or let me see the time. So we are already ahead of the time, right? We already hit our time, our hour, right? So tomorrow I'll tell you how this command will be used when you use Docker run command, right? So Docker run command will always specifically look for these two commands, either cmd or entry point command has to be there in your image, and this command should always be at the bottom, because first it will build the image, and at the last, when you run Docker run as a container from this image, it will start the services automatically. That concept I'll explain you tomorrow. So again, I'll explain you this command, and then one by one we'll start building, right? I'll explain the syntax and we'll start building the image. This command we have to use. So here I'm building the image, and one by one, step by step, I'll tell you, right? I will tell you, and in the background, how it is assembling the image, that also I will tell you. All the concept I'll tell you tomorrow. All right. So it is building the image based on the instruction. All right. So we are doing HTTPD is nothing but Apache, right? It will it will create the container image. How it will create that I'll tell you tomorrow, because we don't have time. We'll do it slightly with patience. We'll do it. Right. We'll not hurry up on this particular topic, and we'll do it. All right. So just a basic introduction, and we will again meet tomorrow. And tomorrow I'll show you how we are building this image.
Prashant, I have a
Yeah,
question here. See,
sure.
since we know for all the sample commands like make directory and change directory, we are using the adapting the run, right? Similarly,
Mm,
let's say starting the service, we can do like systemctl start
mm,
httpd, right?
mm,
Why don't we put our
mm.
run before that?
Yeah. See, we cannot do run. See, run command doesn't come with a shell. Run command doesn't come with a shell. So wherever you give run command will run there only. Run command will run on there only. That means, let's say I'm in this path and I put the run command will execute there itself, right? I want to start the services inside the container image. I want to start when my container is up and then I have to go inside the container, then only I have to start the services. So the CMD and entry point, they come with a shell by default, right? Because of the shell, this command will go inside the container because it already comes with a shell. Run command doesn't have a shell. Run command will execute wherever the run command it will execute. It doesn't have a shell. So it cannot go inside the container by default. You have to provide the shell separately. For that, you have to do manual step. But by default, CMD and entry point, they come with a shell. By default, they'll go inside the container because of the shell. They have the shell, they will go inside the container, right? Once they go inside, then they see, okay, this application needs service to be started, they will start the service. Run command cannot do it because of the shell. Run command doesn't have any shell. That is the only
Okay,
difference.
okay. Yeah, and tomorrow and Saturday, Sunday, right? Should we plan for some extended sessions or what is the plan?
Yeah. We will do extended session tomorrow, no problem. I'll pick one application, beautiful application, for some simple application, then I'll pick either Python or Java application, I'll explain it to you. Sunday, I have early morning flight and I'll be traveling. It was pre-planned. I have to go for one event, but evening I'll be free. So if you guys give me some concession that Sunday evening we can connect, I'll be available, but not in the morning. Morning I have a flight.
Sunday,
I cannot join on Sunday.
yes,
Okay, so people already have some plan. So we'll stick
Sunday, Saturday.
Sunday, yeah, but we will extend session in next few days.
sure.
No worries.
Sunday we can
Uh,
exclude the class for some cases.
Yeah, sure. This Sunday even I'm not available, so frankly I'm saying I already registered for
Yeah,
some
yeah.
event and I'll be traveling to Bangalore.
Sure, Prashant, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do
But tomorrow
yeah,
we will understand how to build image. At least you will get an idea. Then I'll pick one example from Java, end to end, purely source code. I'll be building the full-fledged image using Maven. What all things for Java? Maven, Spring Boot, all framework, everything. Right? I'll be building the Java application. Similarly, I'll be building the Python also using the Python frameworks. I'll be using Java Spring Boot framework for Java application. Python I'll be using different framework. Right? So all that thing we will use Flask and Moto and all that framework will be using. Right? And I'll tell you all the concepts, right? How we can build the image. If you understand this concept, rest of it will be easy. So don't miss out the sessions on Dockerfile sessions, building the images. All right, guys. Thanks for joining in. And if you don't have any questions for me, then probably it's good to wrap this session and we can end this meeting. Is that fine?
yeah. Thank you, Prashant.
Thanks, Prashant.
All right, guys. Sorry about the last 2 days. My sincere apologies. Yesterday I was struggling. Day before I was not well because of some other urgency. Right? But we'll make up the thing. Don't worry about it. I'll finish this code
Super.
on time.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
actually, I have yeah. So Prashant, tomorrow maybe I'm asking so too much. When we are building the image, is it fine? Like we can adopt some ARM machines. Like currently we are using that Red Hat 7, right? So
Hmm.
should we build like the host machine? Basically, the Docker, whatever the Docker images, I would like to build them on a ARM image, like AMD ARM 64.
Hmm. You can do it. See, image building is the universal concept. You can deploy this image in any environment, maybe CentOS, Ubuntu, RECL, Red Hat, any environment, Windows, any environment, even Kubernetes. I'll be using the same image in Kubernetes also. See, image building is the universal concept, right? Following these rules which I told you. It doesn't need a particular environment, particular environment. Only whatever Docker rules you should follow. And if your image is built and you are able to run the content out of that image, then you are fine.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay?
that's the challenge. Yeah, some. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
We'll do that.
challenge is image building. Yeah, not the deploying the image.
Yeah,
Okay? But don't worry, we will do all troubleshooting, all the things. And I'll take all the complex use cases, Java, Python, all these are complex applications. So you can understand it.
cool.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Once again, thanks for joining in. Have a good day, and I'll see you again tomorrow, same time. Thank you. Bye, guys.